All right, so received a pop-up on the screen indicating that the recording is starting. So let's begin the hearing. We're convened today, as you know, for a consolidated hearing of two cases filed with the Wisconsin Equal Rights Division by the complainant Jeffrey Peterson and the respondent Raymond School District. The parties have agreed to consolidate these cases to be heard in a single unitary hearing. Today's date is February 17, 2026, and the hearing has been scheduled for 5 consecutive days, if needed, from February 17th through February 23rd, 2026, with a weekend break between the 4th and 5th days of hearing. And as I understand from very recent email correspondence from the complainant's counsel, an additional witness for the respondent, Jonathan Sachs, was unable to testify as scheduled due to a work-related conflict, and therefore his testimony will have to be rescheduled. The proposed date for his testimony is Monday, March 2nd, 2026. And I advise that we will revisit scheduling his testimony through an email exchange following the last scheduled day of hearing. That would be February 23rd. So we'll solidify that date. I think it will be all right, but I want to make sure. The hearing is being held remotely using Microsoft Teams video conferencing. Others who are not necessarily participating in the hearing as a matter of public interest are in attendance just as viewers, and they may not participate in the hearing. They may simply observe the hearing. So I'm John Carlson. I'm the administrative law judge assigned to hear this matter, and I note that the administrative law judge previously assigned to hear these cases, Judge Larissa Benitez Morgan, has presided over both cases since the initial determinations were issued and the cases were certified to hearing on the merits. However, unforeseen circumstances have precluded her from conducting the hearing as scheduled. In consequence, late last week, the parties were given the option of postponing the hearing or having the division explore whether another judge could be assigned on short notice to conduct the hearing. The parties opted for the latter option, and the cases were therefore reassigned to me for hearing. At this time, I ask that the parties please state their appearances, beginning with the complainant's counsel.
Wesley Haslam, representing Jeff Peterson, the complainant.
And for the respondent?
The respondent appears by its attorney, Lori Lubinsky of the Axley firm. Also present with me is Michael Leach, current superintendent of the district.
And as I understand it, Mr. Leach is your non-attorney, your one non-attorney designated representative who may remain present during the entire hearing, and that he's not going to be a witness.
All of that is correct.
Okay. I also ask counsel for both parties to confirm on the record that they consent to the ERD reassigning these cases to me for hearing and to me issuing the decision on the merits for both cases, and at the risk of exercising excessive caution, I ask that counsel for both parties waive any objections to the reassignment of both cases to me.
Complainant's counsel agrees and waives as you said, sir.
And on behalf of the respondent, we agree and waive. Thank you.
Okay. By way of procedural history, I note that the complaint in ERD case number CR 202400725 was filed on March 19, 2024. An equal rights officer investigated the complaint. At the conclusion of her investigation on November 5th, 2024, she issued an initial determination finding probable cause on each claim and certifying the case for a hearing on the merits. The complaint in the second case, ERD case number CR 202401544, was filed on June 18, 2024, and perfected on June 19, 2024. The same equal rights officer also investigated that complaint. At the conclusion of her investigation on November 5th, 2024, she issued an initial determination finding probable cause on each claim in that case, as well and certifying the case for a hearing on the merits. By agreement of the parties, the issues in both cases are to be heard in a single unitary hearing on the merits. In the interest of time and efficiency, I will refrain from detailing with specificity the pre-hearing process undertaken by the parties other than to note that the respondent did file an answer to each complaint. Both parties engaged in discovery. Various pre-hearing motions were filed and decided by Judge Benitez Morgan, and the hearing was rescheduled multiple times. Just give me a moment to, I'm hearing a lot of pop-ups. I'm not sure if there's concerns here.
I see there are more people coming in, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm hoping that all I had to do was admit the other folks. I think that's all I had to do. I'm assuming that everything is kosher on there now. All right, so let me continue with my introduction, which I prepared to expedite things because this is going to be a lengthy process. The issues to be decided, and as noticed in ERD case number CR 2024-00725 are as follows. Whether the respondent violated the Wisconsin Fair Employment Act, Wisconsin statute sections 111.31 through 111.395 by A, discriminating against the complainant in the terms or conditions of employment because of sex, B, discriminating against the complainant in terms or conditions of employment because of sexual orientation, C, terminating the employment of the complainant because of sex, D, terminating the employment of the complainant because of sexual orientation, E, discriminating against the complainant because the complainant opposed a discriminatory practice under the Act, and F, discharging the complainant because the complainant opposed a discriminatory practice under the Act. Do counsel for both parties stipulate that I've accurately stated the issues to be decided for ERD case number 2024-00725?
Plaintiff agrees.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
complainants.
Okay, so yeah,
Respondent agrees.
verbal responses are needed, just so recall that during the hearing. I know there's a tendency to nod. Okay, and so the issues to be decided and as noticed in ERD case number CR 2024-01544 are as follows. Whether the respondent violated the Wisconsin Family and Medical Leave Act, Wisconsin statute section 103.10 by A, interfering with, restraining, or denying the exercise of a right provided under the Act, and B, failing to post notices of employee rights under the Act. Do counsel for both parties stipulate that I've accurately stated the issues to be decided in ERD case number CR 2024-01544?
Complainants agrees.
Yes.
Okay. All right. The hearing record that will consist of the pleadings, the teams recording the hearing, and any exhibits admitted into the record during the course of the hearing. The complainant shall present his case first. The respondent will then present its case. The opportunity to present rebuttal proof may be given to both parties at the discretion of the administrative law judge. That's all I have for my introduction. So I think we're ready to begin the complainant's case in chief. As I understand it, the complainant himself, Mr. Peterson, is going to be the first witness, correct, Attorney Haslam?
That is correct, Judge. Shall I provide an opening statement first?
When I first started with the ERD, I was used to court, and then I found out that it's a rare bird, if ever, that opening statements are given. I was not anticipating one. Attorney Lubinsky, what are your feelings? Did you have one prepared as well?
I don't have one prepared, and I haven't given an opening statement in an ERD hearing in maybe 2 decades, because every
Okay,
judge has said they don't need them.
Yeah, so Attorney Haslam, I'm concerned about the duration of the hearing. Would it be okay with you to just forego that? There's going to be for sure a post-hearing briefing. I will demand it in this, and we'll talk about that after the hearing. But
Absolutely, Your Honor.
okay, all right. So one moment here. Okay, so Mr. Peterson, before you testify, I need to swear you in. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you promise that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Okay, so Attorney Haslam, you may proceed with your first witness.
All right. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
You're here today because you filed claims against the Raymond School Districts, correct?
Correct.
And just to get things started, what are those claims?
Claims are a complaint of sex discrimination, a complaint of retaliation, and a complaint of my FMLA rights being violated.
And when did you first start working at Raymond School?
My contract started July 1 of 2021.
Was that the first time you worked at Raymond School, or were you there before?
I was actually there previously as a fourth grade teacher in 1995 to approximately 2000 and 2001.
And so between the time when you were a teacher at Raymond School and when you came back as the principal, where else did you work?
After leaving Raymond as a teacher, I was the associate principal at a middle school in the Oak Creek Franklin School District. While in Oak Creek Franklin, I was moved to be an elementary school principal, the full principal. After 7 years in the Oak Creek Franklin School District, I was employed by the school district of Waukesha as a elementary principal at their largest elementary school for 9 years, and then spent a short amount of time in the Yorkville School District as a superintendent principal combo, and then ended up back at Raymond in 2021 as the principal.
And so how many total years did you work as a teacher, a principal, or a superintendent?
This is my 31st year in education, I believe.
And how many of those years were you a principal?
Most of my time, 25-ish, are principal years.
And so did you ever, in that entire 30-year period, have you ever received any unsatisfactory performance review before your last year at Raymond?
No.
Had you ever been placed on a performance improvement plan in your entire 30-year career prior to your last year at Raymond?
Never. No.
Now, did you receive like positive feedback at these other jobs, accolades and awards, things like that?
I have in every district I've worked. Actually, while as a teacher at Raymond at the start of my career, I was selected as Walmart's Teacher of the Year after being nominated by a student and confirmed by a superintendent at the time. When I was in the Oak Creek Franklin School District, I was the only principal up till that time and since to receive a mayoral proclamation based on my service to the Oak Creek community and the school district. When I went to the school district of Waukesha, I was elected to the National Board of Magnet Schools of America and spent time leading a transition from a traditional educational program at Summit View to becoming a internationally known magnet school of integrated arts. That magnet school was one of the first 55 schools in the country to earn national certification. And at the end of my term as a board of director for that organization, I was awarded a Principal of the Year award.
Can I pause? I'm sorry, but I've noticed other names now popping up that want to come in. Let's just take a moment. So I apologize to everybody, but I think some of these came in after the scheduled hearing starting time. I'm somewhat disinclined to even pay attention to them, but there's one, I don't know who this number is. Let me just admit some of these other folks. I'll ask you, Heather Asiyanbi. Does anybody know who that is? Okay. Well, I'm going to admit them as if they're not witnesses. Okay. So,
Okay.
and just so we're clear, the reason I'm not admitting witnesses is because the parties have preferred that witnesses be sequestered until it's their turn to testify. This is a number. I don't know whose number this is. I don't know if that's a witness or not. Let me just go down the line. There's one that just has the initial J.
There are a few witnesses that have a first name that starts with J, so I can't verify whether they are or are not witnesses.
Okay, well, I think what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna hold the hearing up for this. I'm gonna admit people and I'm gonna make an announcement that if you're a witness, we're just gonna have to trust people's integrity, okay? So I'm gonna just admit people. For the names showing up, I'll ask if they're witnesses. Jane Raptor
Not a witness on my end.
and Lori, she, you
Yep,
disappeared
that's,
momentarily.
sorry, not a
okay.
witness of mine.
Okay, Linda Hyde.
I don't
That's
recognize
fine.
that name.
Okay, so Luke Meyer.
That's fine.
Fine.
Okay. And it just says NO.
That's what I'm looking at. Just one moment.
I don't have an NO on my list.
One more second. NO is fine, assuming that's initials,
Yeah,
because I don't have an NO either.
I don't know either. Okay, so before we continue, this is a public hearing. I'm admitting people. The problem is there's a sequestration order. So if and I can't always see who I'm admitting because the names aren't always identified on my screen. So if I admitted anybody, I'm relying on your own integrity. If I admitted anybody who is going to testify or may testify in this case, please exit the hearing now. And I will rely again on your honesty to do so. I think that's everybody that popped up somewhat belatedly. So why don't we continue? I apologize for the interruption. Let's continue with Mr. Peterson's testimony.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Jeff, I just asked you if you had positive feedback, awards, and accolades, and you ran through a very long list. I don't want you to have to do that again. But my question to you is, that's a very impressive list of positive feedback you've received over 30 years. Why would someone with that kind of record want to come back and work at a small rural school like Raymond?
Raymond School is the school that I attended as a student. My sisters and I were all students there. My cousins and relatives attended the school as well. My dad served on the school board for 30 years while we were students there. My mom was a PTO mother. My mom passed away when I was a 7th grade student on Christmas Day at Raymond School, and Raymond School kind of enveloped my family and supported us and helped raise us in some respects. I knew there that I wanted to go into education, and when I was able to graduate with a teaching degree, I wanted to start teaching there. I ended up teaching with my 4th grade teacher, who was my new teaching partner. My kindergarten teacher was still there. Several of the teachers I had along the way were still there. Board members were now former neighbors and former classmates and things supporting me. When I was a student, I remember the principal at the time walking by, and I thought to myself that I wanted to do that. And when I had the opportunity, it was always part of the dream to return and be the principal. I had to get some experience, so I left after teaching there for 7 years to get some experience as a elementary school principal in other districts. It's hard to have openings in a one district school or in a one school district. And so I left. And at the time when I left, the following year, my sister got a teaching job there and taught there for the next 19 years until she passed away. Again, it was a time for that community to surround me and our family after unexpectedly losing my sister during the school year. She left a classroom of 5th graders behind, and the teachers and community stepped in again. I then was lucky enough to see that there was an opening and was kind of recruited by the superintendent at the time and encouraged me to apply, knowing that I did have a superintendent's license and that he would be retiring eventually. So I threw my hat in the ring and was lucky enough to become the principal in what truly was the dream job to finish out my career.
And so when you came back as the principal, and there was a superintendent who was there, correct?
Correct. When I was the principal there was a part-time post-retiree superintendent. The district has, over the years, kind of redesigned the leadership positions. Sometimes there was a joint principal superintendent. Sometimes there was a part-time superintendent. Sometimes there's post-retirees.
Okay, Jeff, I'm going to cut you off. I think you answered the question. And now, who was the part-time superintendent when you came back? What was his name?
The superintendent at the time that hired me was Steve Harder.
Okay. And he left after your first year, is that correct?
He did. He left towards the end of that summer after my first year with him.
And then you became the interim superintendent for a period?
For a very short time, I was the interim superintendent, yes.
And during your first year at Raymond School, did you receive any negative feedback from the school board or the superintendent?
Actually, there were two comments that kind of stood out to me. One was by the board president. At one point, he's like, since Jeff has become our principal, our teacher complaints and concerns have plummeted. He actually said they've become non-existent. He was used to teachers kind of contacting him as a board member and sharing their concerns and feedback. And when I became the principal, he said that just drastically declined. Steve Harder also said, had I known working together for a year would have been this great, I wouldn't have decided to retire. I could have put in another 3 to 5 years as a post-retiree.
And at the end of that first year, did you receive a raise?
I did. I received a raise after my first term as principal, yes.
And do you know why you received a raise?
Again, based on Steve, just kind of saying it's been a great year and you're going to, he kind of knew the model was going to be shifted for a little while until the district decided their leadership structure. So based on my performance that first year, he decided to give me a raise.
Okay, I'm going to share up my screen with you, and this is going to be exhibit labeled as C071. C071. And can you see that, Jeff?
Now I can, yes. Yep.
Okay. I'm going to make it a little larger. Oops, wrong screen. Okay.
Okay, hold tight, Wes. Judge, we need a little direction from you. In a pre-hearing conference, the prior ALJ indicated she would be remarking exhibits. I have no objection to marking the exhibits as the parties did, knowing that there won't be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I just want to get an understanding, Judge, of how you want to proceed.
Correct. Let me speak to that. So I as I understand it, because of the voluminous submissions, there was no way that we could bait stamp in the traditional fashion all these exhibits. So the plan is, and I've got my list here, the plan is I'm going to write down the hearing, this will be hearing exhibit 1, okay? It will be, give me a second here. In fact, I have to log these in real time. So I'm playing it. It's exhibit number 1. But in lieu of the traditional sequential Bates numbers that are stamped serially and placed in the bottom right-hand corner usually, we're just going to rely on the previously marked exhibit numbers as Bates numbers. So I'm writing down right now, party complainant, exhibit number 1, the Bates number I'm listing as, I believe you said it was C071.
That is correct. That is correct, Judge.
I can't see that number on this document. Is that pasted on here somewhere?
It's the title of I made those the title of the documents.
So they're not actually on.
They're the title of the files. That is correct.
Okay. Well, okay. I'm going to have to, and I'm going to be listing a description for each. So this would be contract for professional services 2022-2024.
That works for me, Your Honor.
Just reading off the title there. A second. Okay. Well, I don't know. We can't really do anything better at this point. I mean, if there's nothing on the page, I'm not going to wait for for people to mark 11,000 pages. So, unless you want to, you want to stipulate to that, and I can go take a vacation if that's what you want to do.
Um,
All right. So, let's continue. The other thing is after what I like to do, just so you know, a lot of times during these hearings, the exhibits will be discussed, and there will be a number of them. As soon as the foundation for the exhibit is established by the witness, I like to just move them in real time because it's just easier to keep track. So as
Sounds
soon as you establish a foundation through your witness for this document, if you would at that point move the exhibit in, Attorney Haslam. Does that
yes,
make
Your Honor.
sense?
Understood.
Thanks.
So, Mr. Peterson, do you see this document? I have 071 here.
I do.
And is this your contract for employment with Raymond School District from 2022 to 2024?
It is, yes.
I'd like to have this moved in as exhibit, please, Your Honor.
Objections?
No objection.
All right, so exhibit C1 for the hearing, Bates number C-071, that's well, it's already been described on the record, is received in evidence at this time.
And now, Mr. Peterson, at the very bottom of this page, do you see where I'm highlighting right now? Can you see that?
I do, yes. It's a salary of $135,000.
And that was the salary that included your raise after your first year, is that correct?
Correct.
And if I scroll to the second page here, I see a list of indirect compensation. That you've seen this before, correct? And this is accurate to the best of your knowledge. I don't need you to read the whole thing.
It looks very familiar to the contract that I signed, yes.
Okay, so you received sick days, you received a 90% premium of a policy for coverage.
There was health insurance, there was dental insurance, there was paid holidays, there was vacation leave days, there was a 403B plan established for me, there was an HSA that was funded yearly.
Okay, life insurance. And now I'm gonna enter in another exhibit. I'm gonna show you this is labeled C073, and this is to be titled, Your Honor, a draft of the contract. And I will establish that with my client when you're ready, Your Honor.
Draft of what contract?
A draft of the contract that we had just shown, C071.
Oh, okay. So that would have been 2022 through 2024.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay, so that will be hearing exhibit C2. So go ahead and with your questioning.
Okay, so now, Jeff, do you recognize this as being a draft that was exchanged between you and the superintendent at the time about your employment contract from 2022 to 2024?
Yes.
I would like to move that this is admitted, Your Honor.
Objections? Yeah, I think you're muted there. Attorney Lubinsky, you're showing is muted.
Sorry,
Okay.
no objection. I would simply note this isn't a draft contract. It's a draft. It's a document reflecting a portion of the contract. That said, I don't object to the admission.
I agree with Ms. Levinsky's characterization of that.
Okay, so subject to that qualification, the exhibit C2 Bates C073 is admitted into the record at this time.
And here, Jeff, do you see that the salary portion is highlighted in this draft?
I do. It's highlighted, yes.
And do you see a note on the right that Mr. Steve Harder, the superintendent, wrote?
Steve wrote on the comment section, changed to reflect value to the district.
Okay. And so, is that what Mr. Harder told you, the reason you were being given a raise?
I was given a raise because of, yes, the value I provided the district during my first year and his expectations that I would continue to be a strong leader in the district.
Now, after the first year, the first school year that you worked there, Were there new members elected to the school board?
After well, yes, there were new members elected to the school board.
Now, was this election, was it unusual compared to what you know about past elections for Raymond School Board?
I do. On my very first meeting where my contract was signed, two board members took their oath of office, and those two board members had both won as write-in candidates with a couple dozen votes only. And then the following year, write-in candidates because there were no other candidates declaring candidacy. And then the following year, there was a good handful of candidates running for school board.
And do you recall prior to that election, it being difficult to fill school board seats?
I have been connected to Raymond School for 55 years, really. And yes, it was always difficult to find board members.
Okay. Now, of those new candidates who won in the year 2022, did you know anything about them?
I didn't know anything specifically about them. We had gotten to know the candidates who, inquired, like, I'm thinking about running. I have some questions. Are you willing to answer? So I met with a good handful of them. Some had become kind of active during my first year with some challenges to books in our libraries and attending meetings regularly and asking to see curriculum and things like that.
And who are the new candidates who ended up winning?
Gwen Keller was elected, and I believe Janelle Wise. My term at Raymond School as the principal had people being elected and appointed and resigning and then appointed and then up for recall and then not running and then resigning and being elected. So I believe that first year, Gwen Keller, I can be positive, was elected. And I believe Janelle Wise was also potentially Amy Helvig. I can't remember the detail there.
Okay. Now, of the school board members who were elected in 2022, did you have any concerns that these new board members would have issues with the fact that you're a gay man?
I if you think about that time frame was when national politics was becoming very active. Milwaukee was hosting the Republican debates in preparation for the Republican National Committee. The Moms for Liberty organization had a training session during those Republican debates. And I did have concerns that some candidates were aligned to some conservative groups, yes.
Now,
National,
you can go ahead, Jeff.
sorry, nationally, anybody who worked in education knew that education was coming to the forefront as maybe a political pawn, and people were encouraged to get on school boards by political organizations.
Now, are you open about your sexual orientation?
I am. That's an interesting question. I am very private about my personal life. I have never had photos on my desk. I've never talked about my personal relationship with students or families. I've never made announcements of who I live with or used references to my partner or my name. I've always been extremely private regarding that.
You mentioned your partner. How long have you been with your partner?
35 years.
Okay, so going back to the school board members, do you remember when they took their positions, their seats on the school board?
Yes, they typically, Mike, you can probably help me out, or Lori. I believe it's the last Tuesday in April that they have to take their oath of office, but it was towards the end of April.
And so at that time, Steve Harder was still the superintendent, and you were the principal. Is that correct?
Yes.
And sometime after Steve Harder left, you took over the dual role of principal and interim superintendent. Is that correct?
So Steve, when you return as a post-retiree, you are only allowed to work a certain number of hours and days. And Steve had calculated at the beginning of summer that he had about 8 days left to meet that requirement without going over. So Steve actually stayed through mid to late August, and he planned and executed the annual meeting and the budget presentation. So I would say he probably was officially retired for the second time mid to late August of 2022. And then I became interim deputy superintendent.
And did you work during the summer of 2022?
I have a 260-day contract, so yes, I worked throughout that summer.
And during that summer in preparation for the next school year, the 22-23 school year, did you do any like team building exercises with the teachers and staff?
So I think I don't think a lot of people realize that the summer for a principal slash superintendent is our busy time. We're hiring staff, we're reorganizing rooms, we're handling large cleaning projects, we're of course registering students and kind of putting together the whole year coming up, which includes professional development. I had been the principal for a year, and now I was kind of assuming a partial dual role for that second year with our curriculum director. So yes, I plan professional development. I think it's always been very important to me as a principal to energize, motivate, team build at the beginning of the year for teachers. They're coming off of a summer break, and I want them to be at their best, excited, happy, motivated at the beginning of the year. So I did plan a couple of professional development activities in addition to the typical bloodborne pathogen videos, reviewing the handbook, all those things.
So tell me those two again, what those two events were, the team building events.
Sure. So the first one was a kind of a continuation of year one. The first year I had done a in the building scavenger hunt, and I had put together a kind of a challenge for staff. They had a certain amount of time to run throughout the building and find odd factoids about dates on trophies, schools in our conference, room numbers and teacher names and things. And it was so well received that I decided to build on that the second year. And the second year then was outside of the building, a road rally through our school community. We had hired several new teachers that weren't familiar with a small rural school district like Raymond. A lot of people don't even realize that there are one school district still left in the state. So I wanted the teachers to become familiar with the community. The teachers who had been there for a while had great fun getting out and about and seeing families and stuff before school was about to start. Another event I planned, and anybody in education knows that post Act 10, it's pretty difficult to keep teachers feeling valued and respected. Raymond School has always been the center of the Raymond community. There's been a hardware store and a village hall, and that's about it. So the school has always been highly revered by the community members. I wanted to make sure that teachers knew that their job is very important. They're raising the next citizens of the community. And so I selected what happened to be a favorite fourth grade trip when I was teaching at Raymond, which was the 1888 schoolhouse. And I took the staff, the professional staff, the certified teaching staff to that venue for just a little bit of a reflection on how important teachers are in the lives of small communities. And we had lunch and we did some professional activities there, and I would say treated them to an experience where they were going to be excited being the leaders in the community at our school.
Okay, I'm going to share a document now, and this is the document marked C068, and I'm going to describe this as the scavenger hunt rules and community feedback. I'm going to share that now. Jeff, can you tell me if you can see that?
I can see that, yes, sir.
Okay. And do you recognize this as being the Raymond, the scavenger hunt rules and regulations?
Yes.
I'm going to scroll down, and these are this is still the complete document, correct?
That is, yes.
And I understand that underneath this, you've attached some of the feedback from the community members. Is that correct?
Yes, and I'll comment that that's just a portion of social media feedback from not only staff members, but also community members on what a positive experience it was. If you look at, I think probably the,
Jeff, I'm gonna have to move to admit this exhibit. So let me move to exhibit to enter it in now. Let's see if there's any objections, and then we can talk about it. Okay.
Sure.
Complainant moves to admit C068 scavenger hunt rules and feedback as an exhibit.
I don't have an objection other than to note that several of the pages are hearsay, but which is admissible in an administrative proceeding, so I don't object.
So hearing exhibit C3 with Bates C-068 is admitted into the record.
Okay, Jeff. So these are the rules that you have for the scavenger hunt. Is that correct?
correct. And then at the
And
end
then-
is
And
feedback.
down here, these are the items you wanted people to do, correct?
Correct. Yes, they were all task lists that they could kind of strategize and self-select as what they wanted to complete.
Okay, and then the next page, it goes on to have more of these tasks. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
And then we go down and we have some community feedback. Do you know who Judy Radovich is?
Judy is one of the teachers.
Okay, and she gave we're not gonna read all of her comments, but she had positive feedback, correct?
Yeah, I think what's noteworthy there is she described it as one of the best days of professional development in a 25-year career.
Yeah, I'm just going to object and move to strike. Having the witness testify to what somebody else has said is hearsay, and it's irrelevant for this hearing.
I don't believe it's irrelevant, Your Honor. I believe that people the other side is going to paint this as a negative aspect of Jeff's record, and I want to have some example of the contemporaneous feedback that was provided. It doesn't matter so much the content, just that Jeff can testify that it was positive.
Wasn't he just, I think the objection was to his characterization and were you paraphrasing from the actual document, Mr. Peterson?
I've seen several pieces of social media, and I think this was such a memorable and fun day. Thanks. I'm ready for year 24. So that was reading exact words from the document.
Okay, and I'll just say, I think the objection is kind of mute. I think the document speaks for itself.
Okay. And roger that. And then moving on to the next page, there's more pictures here from Judy Radovich of her and students. Is that correct?
Yes, that's actually the one that says it was the best day of her 25-year career, I believe.
Okay. And then going down here, you have a comment from someone named Brad Brown. Do you know who Brad Brown is?
Brad Brown is the pastor at one of the churches in Raymond.
And is it correct? So I'm going to read this out loud. You tell me if I read it correctly. Does he say, "I loved it. I think our church should do something similar"? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, at the time of the scavenger hunt, was all the feedback you received from it, was it all positive at that time?
I didn't, at that time, I didn't receive any complaints or concerns or questions.
And now talking about both of these events, the scavenger hunt and the 1888 schoolhouse visit, did all teachers and staff get a chance to participate in these events?
The scavenger hunt was scheduled on a day that our assistants, our instructional aides, were paid to participate. At the beginning of the year, I think some days you have all your staff there, some days you only have teaching staff there. The scavenger hunt was on a day that the support staff, I guess you'd call it, was also there, so they all participated. The day that we went to the 1888 schoolhouse, the schoolhouse is a original building from 1888 that had very limited participant requirements, and we only took the certified teaching staff because that was a paid day for them. It was not a full paid day for our assistants and instructional staff, or our support staff, I should say.
So now, around this time when you're preparing for the beginning of the 22-23 school year, did any friction arise between you and any of your staff or employees?
At the time, I didn't really notice it. I reflect now that there was a conversation I had with a secretary at the time regarding a new employee that would be working in the office, in the health room, and grow as clerical staff support. And I believe that caused some friction. Mitzi, the secretary, had pretty much hired somebody else for that position. Mitzi had a elevated role when I came to Raymond and had her hands and fingers in a lot of school activities that happened. And I think she had led another employee to believe that they would be receiving that position. In conversations with superintendent at the time when he knew of the vacancy, he really encouraged me to hire someone that would be aligned with kind of the needs that I had moving forward and growing the district.
And this Mitzi you talk about is Mitzi Kozad, correct?
Correct, yes.
You spell the last name.
Cozad.
And do you know if,
Hold on, how do you spell Mitzi too, I guess?
Sure. M as in Mary, I, T as in Tom, Z, I.
Yeah, I got it right. I think I saw that in the materials, but I just wanted to make sure. Go ahead.
and now do you know if Mitzi had issues with other people at Raymond School?
In Mitzi's career, there have been several employees that she targeted.
I'm gonna object and move to strike. Lack of foundation. I don't think the witness can testify to who somebody else allegedly targeted.
I
I believe he can testify to his knowledge of it.
So read the question or restate the question.
Okay. To your knowledge, did Mitzi Kozad make complaints about other employees of Raymond School?
Well,
yes.
And before, just so we're, for the witness, if there's an objection, let me rule on it first before you speak again.
Sorry.
Thanks, no worries.
I don't
So,
object to that question. That's a yes or
Okay.
no question. So
All right,
Right.
go ahead.
Do you want me to repeat the question, Jeff?
Well, I
That
think
would be great.
So based on your knowledge, did Mitzi Kozad ever issue complaints about other employees or staff at Raymond School?
Yes, there were other times.
Were there multiple other times that she would issue complaints?
Multiple times, yes.
And I understand she filed a complaint against you. Is that correct?
Complaint is a strong word. At the time, I had no knowledge of a formal complaint, nor did I have knowledge of that complaint until after the school district responded to my DWD complaint. Did I even see Mitzi Kozad's complaint? Instead, I was just told by a board member that there were some concerns and they were going to have someone ask me some questions about it.
And so I just want to get the timeline right. So you didn't actually see the complaint Mitzi filed against you until you said after you filed your DWD complaint. Is that about a year afterwards, over a year after she had filed it?
Yes, over a year after.
Okay, I'd like to enter in another document here. I'm going to have you take a look at this, Jeff. And this is, I'm going to say this is a email copy of the complaint that Mitzi Kozad filed on September 8th, 2022. Jeff, can you, sorry.
Wes, what exhibit number on yours is this?
074 on mine.
Thank you.
C074. And I would like to move to have C074.
Well, let me, I want to get it. And I apologize to the extent I may delay things, but I've got to log all these in real time. So it's an email copy of what again?
Of Mitzi Kozad's complaint.
Okay. Second, ZAD, right? Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, and so any objections to the admission of this document?
No objection.
Okay,
Right.
so hearing exhibit C4, Bates C-074 is admitted.
Okay. And Jeff, now I'm not going to go through this whole complaint. It's 3 pages long, single space, but there are some things I just want to ask you about that pop out at me. Very first thing it says here, Jeff immediately started vocalizing all of the negative things he noticed upon his hire. Do you see that? I highlighted it to make it easier for you to see. I can make it large if you need me to.
It's okay. Yes, I see that. Yes.
Is that something you did? Did you walk into the school and just start saying all kinds of negative things about it?
I'm just going to remind everybody what I said earlier. I was ending up in the dream job that I hope to end my career in. And it's hard to find a lot of negativity with a place that you've been waiting to work at your whole life.
Did you point out things you wanted to see improved?
It's an aging building. It was built in the 60s. There are things that, of course, I want to be reflective of the great things that we happen in that school. And I want it to be kind of the showplace for our community to come to. So of course, there were things that I pointed out that I thought could be improved.
And she also says that you would talk about what a terrible job the custodians did. Is that something you did, Jeff?
I pride myself in my career to hold people accountable for responsibilities that they have.
Okay. If you had an issue with a custodian, who would you go to about it?
The custodian and his team, yes.
Okay.
I had multiple conversations with custodians at Raymond School.
And there's a lot in here we could get to. One thing stood out to me down here on the second page is a little interesting. I want to know more about. This is on page 2 of that exhibit. And I'm going to read it aloud and you just tell me if I'm reading it correctly. Can you, I'm going to highlight the portion I'm reading and then you tell me if I get it wrong, okay?
Okay.
It says, and I quote, "In addition to that, Jeff strategically placed for all to see a big candy bar on Teresa's desk in the office with a large handwritten note wishing her a good day. A nice gesture, yes, because it was the first day of school and she was new. However, after observing how Jeff operates all year, I know it was a very deliberate and direct message that he was trying to convey to me and Nikki." Did I read that correctly?
You did.
Did you place a candy bar on Teresa's desk and not give one to Mitzi Kozad?
Every year I acknowledge all of our new staff, whether it's a classroom teacher or a new health room clerk or a new custodian, with a handwritten note that welcomes them to, in this situation, welcomes them to the Raymond family. And so glad that they're going to be continuing their career with us. And sometimes it's candy bar, sometimes it's a bottled water, sometimes it's a stuffed animal of our school mascot. But I do welcome all our new employees when they come in on that first day of official school. I want them to be welcomed and feel like they made the right decision to be part of our team.
In that year, did you give a candy bar to all the new staff?
The actual gift changed, but new staff got a candy bar, and if you were a classroom teacher, you got a Panther stuffed animal.
Okay, I'm going to go back up to the top of this complaint, and we already established this was written by Mitzi Kozad on September 8th, 2022. Is that right?
That's right.
And how long is that after you told Mitzi that you were going to hire someone else for that office position?
A couple of weeks.
Now, after this complaint, did you continue to be the principal of Raymond School?
After this complaint, I guess put until November when Mike Garvey came in as an interim superintendent.
But you were still the principal, Jeff, correct?
Correct. Yes. Yes. Sorry, I
Yep.
missed the question.
Okay. Well, I guess that'll segue nicely into who took over for you as interim superintendent.
Dr. Mike Garvey.
And did you know Dr. Mike Garvey before?
I did not. Am I able to point something out about this email as well?
I'm going to let you.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's
So I'm
noteworthy.
gonna, wait a minute. We have to have an orderly hearing. There has to be a question and an answer. A witness doesn't get to do that, Judge.
I agree.
Okay. Jeff, is there anything else about this email that stands out to you that you'd like to point out?
Yes, I'd like to point out that this email was printed by Gwen Keller from her home email, and that the complaint was originally sent to board members' home emails, personal email addresses.
You mean their personal email addresses rather than their professional Raymond school address?
Correct. They all had school board emails as well.
And so now I'm going to go back into Dr. Mike Garvey being hired, right? You said he took over for you as interim superintendent, correct?
Correct.
And did you have any issues with Mike Garvey filling in the part-time superintendent role?
No, anybody who leads a single school district that has quite varied responsibilities, I was happy to have somebody share some of the leadership workload. Plus, I most enjoy the principal work. So having somebody handle some of the superintendent-ish kind of things, I was happy to have him part-time handle some of those things.
Tell me about your work dynamic with Mr. Garvey.
Mr. Garvey was also post-retirement part-time. If you are collecting your state retirement, you only are allowed to work a certain number of hours. So he was on a limited contract, working 2.5, 3 days a week at most was all he could do to continue to receive retirement benefits. Our offices were in separate parts of the building. He mostly worked with our business official, our bookkeeper, I guess you'd call her, and the secretarial staff. And then I primarily worked with the day-to-day teaching staff, students, parents, curriculum, etc.
All right. And did you have like regular meetings with Mr. Garvey as administrators?
Very, very early on, Mr. Garvey said that was his pattern, that he met with the administrative team. Again, it's interesting when you have a single school district, there isn't much of an administrative team. Ours would have consisted of myself, the principal, a curriculum director. Dr. Garvey had mentioned the custodian being part of that team. I think there was one meeting that we actually did meet together and the custodian wasn't part of that one. Abby, the curriculum director, and I met in what Mr. Garvey said would be weekly administrative meetings once.
So the entire time you were there, you had one weekly administrative meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, were you or any of the other school leadership, I'm not talking about the school board here, I'm talking about you and other administrators involved in the process of hiring Mike Garvey?
The only involvement I had was to give a tour to Mr. Garvey the night he was being interviewed, but I was not included, and nor was Abby Ramon, who was our director of curriculum, was not included. We were also puzzled by that. This would be the person we would be working most closely with, who was coming into a setting that he didn't really know much about, that we wanted to collaborate with. But we were not included in his selection at all.
Now, did Garvey ever conduct an employee evaluation of you?
That's an interesting question. I will say, yes, he completed an evaluation of me.
Okay. And I'm going to move in exhibit C003.
Well, I don't know what it is yet. Do you want to give some foundation to it first?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. So
hold on. So this is hearing exhibit C5, and what's your exhibit number?
The C003.
Okay, so that will be Bates number C003, and just give me a brief description of what it is.
It's an employee review.
Of complainant, okay?
All right.
That's for the 2022-23 school year, it looks like, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead with your questions to establish what the foundation.
Jeff, is this document a copy of the employee review that Garvey conducted of you?
It is.
I'd like to have this moved in as evidence, please, as an exhibit.
No objection.
Okay, so hearing exhibit C5, Bates C003 is admitted.
Okay. And I also want to enter in, just to save time, I'm going to enter in another exhibit here. I'm going to show, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show a excerpt of school policy. It is entitled C002. And I'm going to ask Jeff if you recognize this as being the school policy about evaluations that was in place at the time of your employment at Raymond School when this evaluation was conducted. Jeff?
Oh, I was just waiting to see if Lori had to, or does the judge have to admit it? Okay.
He hasn't moved it yet.
I need you to
Yes.
indicate it.
Sorry.
Yeah, so what's the shorthand description of this, Attorney Haslam? What's the?
School policy for evaluations.
Okay, and it's Bates C002. Okay, so
Now, Jeff, do you recognize this as being an excerpt of the school policy regarding administration of staff and at Raymond School?
I do. A primary responsibility of principals is to evaluate staff, so
Okay.
I'm familiar with this policy.
So I'd like to move to have this entered in as an exhibit, please.
No objection.
Okay.
so hearing exhibit C6, Bates C-002 is admitted.
Okay. And now toward the bottom of the page, I highlighted a paragraph here. Can you please, are you able to read that aloud for us, Jeff?
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
I sure can. So I'm going to highlight the paragraph I would like to have you read. Can you see that clearly?
Yes, yep.
Okay, please read that paragraph aloud.
The board will use the educator effectiveness model available from CISA 6 and will assess upon the recommendation of the district administrator whether to use an alternative program.
And this is under the subheader that's entitled Licensed Teachers and Principals, correct?
Correct.
So this is describing what's going to be used to evaluate a principal, you, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to switch back to the exhibit 5 I have, C003 that I introduced. Now, it said in the last thing you read that that principals should be evaluated using CISA 6. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well,
Is
just hold on. I'm going to object. The document speaks for itself. There's discussion of recommendation of the district administrator on whether to use alternative programs. So if you're going to quote the document, quote it accurately is all I ask.
There's another line there.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the I'm going to go back to C002. Lori, would you like me to quote more of the document?
No, I'm just asking you if your question.
There's an objection. So can you just, maybe we can resolve it by restructuring the question by referring to the document?
Okay, sure. Jeff, does this say that the CISA 6 model will be used to evaluate teachers and principals?
Objection leading.
I mean, you know, that I'm overruled. This is just, he's just trying to get the document into the record. I want to try to expedite things.
Understood,
He could ask, what does this say? You know, so let's just go ahead. Go ahead and answer.
Yes, and the following line says, evaluation shall be conducted based on the model in place at the time and consistent with applicable state law and the district's guidelines.
And I believe the part that Lori was referring to that says, upon recommendation of the district administrator, whether to use an alternative program, correct?
Correct.
And that would mean that if the administrator wanted to use a different program, they would recommend that to the board. Isn't that correct?
Objection, that's leading.
It's leading.
Okay, Jeff.
What's your understanding of what that means, Mr. Peterson?
If they wanted to use, if the administrator wanted to use something else, they would need to seek board approval for that.
Okay. Thank you.
And just so we're, I don't mind leading, just going forward, I don't mind leading on something that's obvious and not going to be in dispute. But if in a situation like that, please, counsel, when you're questioning your witnesses, try to refrain from leading questions that could cause controversy and delay the hearing.
Yes, Your Honor, understood. Thank you. Now, I'm going back here to what was entered in as the Exhibit 5. It's C003, your evaluation. Do you see that on your screen?
Yes, the administrative review, yes.
Okay, I'm just going to scroll down. You've read this before, correct?
Yes.
And are you familiar with CISA 6?
Extremely familiar. I've been certified as an evaluator multiple times and recertified multiple times. There's a extensive set of training that has to be.
Jeff, I think you answered the question just fine. I don't mean to cut you off, but my next question is this CISA 6 evaluation? Is this a CISA 6 evaluation?
No.
It's not a CISA 6 evaluation.
And what just, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I'm referring, what hearing exhibit is this? Is it in already? Is there another one?
This is
C5,
exhibit number
C5?
5. Yes.
C5,
Yes.
okay, thanks.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did the board ever approve a different evaluation tool other than CISA 6?
No.
Did Garvey tell you what criteria he was going to use to evaluate you?
He did not.
Did you expect to be evaluated based on the CISA 6 model?
I did during the time that I was interim acting superintendent. We purchased the additional suite for educator effectiveness CISA 6.
Now, if you had been evaluated using CISA 6, what would that process have looked like?
It's a year-long process that starts at the beginning of the school year with the employee or the principal identifying some student learning objectives and professional practice goal. And then there is a series of observations that take place, a mid-year check-in, and then after the observations, the employee or principal has the opportunity to respond to those observations. And there's can be done electronically through the educator effectiveness portal, or there can be face-to-face meetings. But there's multiple meetings when somebody is on what's called a summary year. And at the end of the evaluation, you meet and do a self-assessment, share with the evaluator the progress you made on your student learning objectives and your professional practice goal. And then you have an opportunity to present them a series of artifacts that demonstrate that you met the standards that were part of your evaluation. That's for teachers and administrators.
Okay. And now going down to the last page of this document here, again, this is C5 here. I see that, is this a Mike Garvey signature here?
Yes.
And is the date on that March 25th, 2023?
It is.
And I see that there's a place for your signature, even though you didn't sign it. It says April 24th, 2023. Is that correct?
That's what it says, yes.
And is that the day you received this evaluation?
The April 24th date.
April 24th, 2023 is when you received it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know when Garvey began conducting this evaluation?
I don't. I think I don't. He signed it on the 25th, of March.
Well, I'm going to object and move to strike that. I don't think the witness has foundation to know the date that Mike Garvey signed it.
And I said
Sustained, but the document has a date.
Yep.
That we can see what date is on the document. We can see the signature, which he has said to his understanding was Mr. Garvey's signature. So can we move on from that, Attorney Haslam?
Yes, absolutely, Your Honor. And so how often were you in the same building as Mike Garvey?
He worked 2 days a week, so at most 2 days a week. Sometimes I'd be at another consortium meeting or something. So even during those 2 days a week, we sometimes were not in the building on the same days.
And when he provided you with this this employee review, did you go through it with him?
We didn't discuss the evaluation very much.
Okay. Did he explain to you everything that he wrote?
No, during the time I was also presented at the same exact time a plan of improvement.
Plan of improvement. Okay. Now you call a plan of improvement a PIP. That's the shorthand for it in the education world, right?
Some do, yes. Yep.
Are we comfortable if I just use the word PIP instead of plan of improvement from here on out?
Sure.
Okay. And I would like to show another document, and this is going to be C004, and it's going to be entitled Professional Improvement Plan. And we'll be entering that in as C7, I believe, is the next documents on our list.
Correct. Oops,
And Jeff,
hold
can
on.
you?
Give me 1 second. Sorry, go ahead. I hit something and I don't know what I hit, and then I had a pop-up happen, so.
Okay.
Occasional
So
blips in my performance here. Go ahead.
Jeff, can you authenticate that this is the PIP that you received from Mr. Garvey?
Yes, that is.
I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and you can see it. That this is the entire PIP that you received from Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
And it says it was delivered on April 24th, 2023. Do you see that?
Yes, the same date as the evaluation.
Okay. And what's the purpose of a PIP?
A plan of improvement is a opportunity to do some goal setting to, it's in the name, make an improvement.
Okay. And here on page 1, it says down here that I'm going to highlight it. Mr. Peterson will meet at least every other week with Dr. Garvey to review the progress. Did I read that correctly?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And it says that in just about every category, it says Peterson will meet at least every other week with Garvey to review progress. You see where I highlighted that, where it's stated a second time?
Yes.
And do you recall that it's stated several times throughout this document?
In several sections, that's the same statement. Yes.
Did you actually meet with Mr. Garvey every other week?
We did not, and actually, after receiving that, it was probably about a month before I left that day from his office. I took note of that and asked if we could calendar some dates, if he wanted me to send calendar invites, or if he was going to coordinate those. And he didn't want to commit to any regular meetings. It had gone about a month before I said it's about time that we sit down so I can update you on what we're doing.
And does this document also tell you that you're to provide him with a plan outlining your strategies to improve?
It does indicate that.
Okay, I'm gonna introduce another exhibit here, and this is going to be C005, and the short title of this will be Plan of Improvement Monitoring. Jeff, can you see this on the screen?
Yes.
And this should be entered in, I believe, as C8, Your Honor.
Correct. Before we continue, did we move? I'm not sure we moved C7.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. Yes, may we please move C7 into the record?
No objection.
All right, so exhibit C7, page C004 is receiving evidence at this time.
And Jeff, do you recognize this document that I have in front of you now that is labeled Plan of Improvement Monitoring?
Yes.
I'd like to move this into the record also, Your Honor.
No objection.
Okay, C8, page C005 is received in evidence.
Okay. Now, can you tell me what this is, Jeff?
This is a record-keeping tool that I kept for some of my meetings with Dr. Garvey, and what, if possible, I included some statements he made, or recommendations he made, and then I would include some notes of things that I made. There's some links in there as well as some of the things I was planning to share with him, or the links are actually what we call as artifacts to meeting the plan of improvement.
Okay. So this, is it, do you feel that you made sincere efforts to make the changes Garvey had asked for?
Yes, I did. You can see that there's a May 25th and a June 12th. I take everything seriously, and when you're a person who has never been placed on a plan of improvement, it of course became a priority of mine to complete the steps expected.
And do you feel that Dr. Garvey was clear with what his expectations were of you?
I distinctly recall on that April 24th meeting asking, one, I kind of wanted to know the data behind it. I had no idea what he was using to authenticate the need for improvement in certain areas. So I asked him multiple times, how did you collect that? Who did you seek that information from? Do you have more definition to what that actually means? And then, of course, I anticipated that he would either be able to provide me with the foundation that he based his decisions on, or the data that he collected to base his decisions on. But also, I was very inquisitive. I wanted to meet his goals. So I asked questions like, well, do you happen to have a model of what that looks like? Or have you seen this done really well somewhere else that I could replicate for our setting and our time right here? And those conversations were kind of just like circular. I felt like I was continuing to ask the same questions and not get any resolutions to my questions.
All right. It says here, there's a date up here on this that says May 25th from 11:45 to 12:15. Do you see that?
Yes. Yep.
Is that a day you had a meeting with Mr. Garvey?
That was the day that we had a meeting, and it indicates that 10 minutes were discussed regarding the plan. The rest of that meeting was on other things.
So you met with him for a half hour. It looks like it says 11:45 to 12:15, but you have notes here that say only 10 minutes were really discussed talking about the plan. Is that right?
Correct.
And is that the first meeting since he gave you the PIP and administrative review that you were able to meet with him?
Yes.
And down here it says June 12th, 1:30 to 2:39 Monday. Is that the next meeting after that one we just talked about that you had with Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Okay. And now, what was Mr. Garvey's response to your efforts that you made?
I will say he was polite to listen to me, and he participated in the conversation. But as I mentioned previously, when I asked for specific guidelines or directions or data to review, I was never provided any of that.
And I see here you include a bunch of links here. Are those links to various documents?
Yes.
And those documents are there to show that you're meeting the goals that he had set out for you. Is that the purpose of those links?
Correct. They were artifacts, we call them, of things that I had accomplished or that I was asked to do, or things that I initiated, knowing that the district in a lot of places needed some systems and support put in place.
Okay. And now I'm going to introduce another document here. It says C006, and the title of this is PIP Response 1 and 2. I'm going to share my screen right now. Jeff, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. And do you recognize this as being, do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to move to have C006 moved into evidence, please.
Objection.
Did you say no objection or?
No objection.
Okay, the no part cut out, I think, on my end, or maybe I just didn't hear it, but so you're not objecting. So C9, Bates C006 is admitted.
Okay, Jeff, can you just tell me briefly what this document is?
This was feedback I got from Dr. Garvey regarding my plan of improvement, and then a response that I provided to his feedback.
Okay, so I'm going to highlight this paragraph at top that starts with I met with Mr. Peterson. Is this part that Dr. Garvey wrote?
Yes,
And then where it says response, this is something that you wrote, correct?
correct.
And again, he gave you your first PIP update on May 25th of 2023. Is that right?
That's right.
And that's just a month after you received the PIP on April 24th, 2023, correct?
A month after I received it, yes, in the spring of the school year.
Okay. And and in that month, how many days were you actually in the same building as Mr. Garvey?
It would have been potentially 8. Could have been spring break in there, so even less potentially. I don't know
Okay.
when Easter fell that year.
And that's because he works 2 days a week. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then it says here that your response says, at my request, Dr. Garvey and I met on May 25th. And then it goes on to says, and June 12th. Is that correct?
Correct.
So June 12th was the next time he updated you. Is that correct?
Right.
And so June 12th, let's see, May 25th to June 12th. I think that's like 18 calendar days, including weekends and everything. Is that right?
Right.
So between your first PIP update and your second PIP update, how many days do you think that Dr. Garvey was actually in the building with you?
Another 4 to 6 days, maybe.
Okay. And now, did you receive any other PIP updates from Dr. Garvey during this entire time after you got your employee evaluation besides the first two?
I did not until the following October, after I was actually on administrative leave when I got my third update.
Okay, so when you say the following October, you're talking about October of 2023 still though, right?
Yes,
Okay. And you said, I believe you said you'd already been placed on administrative leave. Is that correct?
correct. I had been on administrative leave, and then all of a sudden I got I don't remember how I received it, but Dr. Garvey provided me a third update on my plan of improvement.
Did you ever receive a preliminary notice of non-renewal?
I did.
Do you remember the date you received that?
I received that preliminary notice, I believe it was September 27th.
So Mr. Garvey's third update came after you had received a preliminary notice of non-renewal, correct?
Correct, yes. And I wasn't even in the building working.
Okay. Now, the entire time you were in the PIP, did Dr. Garvey, would he actively observe you?
One of the expectations was to put together a professional development calendar. I led several sessions of professional development in that time frame, and Dr. Garvey never observed one professional development session. There was one, I'll call it a behavior meeting with a student that he happened to walk in on, that I was meeting with a student and discussing a disciplinary issue. And he came in and sat down, and at the conclusion of that meeting with the student, obviously sent the student back to class, etc. He said, nice job, you handled that really well. Discipline wasn't necessarily included in my plan of improvement, but he observed that short meeting with a student and resolving the disciplinary issue.
Now, I would like to introduce one more exhibit. This one is marked C130, and I have it as Peterson's update is my short title for it. I'd like to have Jeff recognize this document. Jeff, do you recognize this document? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry.
Not quite yet.
Okay. Now, do you see this document, Jeff?
Yes.
And is this your final update that you wrote for your PIP?
Yes.
I'd like to have this moved into evidence,
No objection.
and this would
Okay,
be
so C10, Bates C-130 is admitted.
okay.
I got the Bates right, C-130?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
And now, Jeff, tell me what is this? I can scroll through a little bit with you, just so you could see the whole thing and recall, and then I'll go back to the top. It's 4 pages long. Tell me what this is.
As part of the educator effectiveness system, teachers are evaluated on what they call the preponderance of evidence. So throughout their evaluation cycle, they're collecting artifacts and evidence that indicate that they are proficient in the teaching, in this situation, administrative standards. So this was a document I created to kind of keep that log of things that were created or accomplished during my plan of improvement. And then just like homework, when I completed a section, I indicated that it was complete.
Okay. And you also have links included in here. Is this correct?
There are several links, and there are several links to documents that were meeting the expectations to the best of my ability that I could interpret from Mr. Garvey's written plan of improvement. If you remember, we didn't meet. I at times would potentially present him with something and try to get feedback on it. And other times I included things in this kind of collection document indicating that I was meeting the expectations according to the plan of improvement.
Did you send this directly to Mr. Garvey?
Yes, and board members received this as well.
So you sent this to all the board members also?
Yes, it had been my practice as principal and then short time dual principal superintendent to provide weekly updates. And this was just, again, improving communication with the board members. Board members aren't employees. They don't work in the building. They aren't there day to day, especially if you look at the time frame of this plan of improvement. The majority of the time that I was getting feedback was summertime. No students, no families, no parents, and I'm expected to make some very specific school-related progress
Okay.
when school's not
And
in session.
and now, did you you set out several the entire time you were on a PIP, you were creating responses, you said, right?
Correct. And like I said, I communicated weekly with the board. That's kind of depending on your situation. That's kind of what happens. Maybe weekly is standard. Otherwise, it for sure is before board meetings. You communicate with the board.
So I'm just trying to cut you off because what I want to get at is that the entire time you're on your PIP, you're writing these updates and you're sending them to Garvey and to the entire school board. Is that correct?
Yes.
Hold on. Can you restate that question? Because I want to make sure his testimony is accurate.
Sure. So I'm just paraphrasing. I'm trying to paraphrase his testimony, and I want to make sure it's right. So what I'm asking you, Jeff, is you said that you had made several responses to your PIP throughout the time you were on it, correct? And every time you made one, you would send it to both Garvey and to the school board.
Hold on a second, please. Just a reminder to the witness, you asked the question correct and he nodded. You have to respond verbally as well.
I'm sorry, I didn't think he was done with this question before people jumped in. So.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. Well, you were nodding. So it's just a reminder. I need verbal responses. Go ahead.
Wait, you know what? I'm going to make this easy, Lori. You told me, Jeff, that you were sending regular updates on your PIP the entire time you were on it to both Garvey and the school board. Is that correct?
I updated them regularly, yes.
So the entire time you're on your PIP, did anybody come to you and tell you not to send it to the school board directly and that was a mistake or something that you shouldn't be doing?
No. and again, I think it's important when you have a part-time superintendent, plus it was discussed multiple times, when you have a part-time superintendent, there were parts of my full-time 5-day-a-week responsibilities that were to keep the board informed of what was happening at school.
Okay. And now, while you were on the PIP, I understand you hired an attorney to represent you, not me, a different attorney. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And why did you hire an attorney?
As things continued, there were little maybe indicators now in reflection that I didn't pay attention to. And when staff members actually started coming to me and saying, well, Jeff, you know what this is all about, don't you? And I started to make some connections between comments that Dr. Garvey had made, the political influence of some of our board members, and connected the dots that there were some things that I considered discriminatory.
You just mentioned in that response comments Dr. Garvey made. What were those comments?
Dr. Garvey would kind of saunter into my office, share a tidbit, and then end up removing himself from my office. And they were just kind of reflections of his career or comments about events that he attended. For example, he told me about a former teacher of his that was a lesbian, and she posted pictures of herself on her personal Facebook page in a swimming suit, and he had noticed that teacher had friends in her social media account, if that's what they're called, that were former students. And again, there was no resolution to that story. Then he left. Another time he told me about going to some celebration or some church service of a former pastor or priest of his in Chicago, and there was a LGBTQ group demonstrating, and he asked if I was familiar with that group. And again, a little bizarre to be talking about orientation and protest and his religious beliefs. Another time I remember he told me about a teacher, and I'm not exactly sure what the teacher's role was, but it was a male teacher that he had worked with, and he was among a team of other male teachers, and that male teacher just didn't fit in, and that even though he tried to be included in the guy group, he ended up leaving the district because he just didn't fit in with the other male teachers. And those were just things that, again, when you put together kind of repetitive things that were just kind of odd to me. My very first meeting, I was working in a district previously, and I started going to board meetings once I knew I had gotten hired. And the very first board meeting that I went to, a community member stood up and asked about students viewing a video called Arthur's Gay Wedding. This is the first time I'm at a board meeting as a private gay male, and I'm sure the word was out that I was the principal and that I had been hired. And then a public comment was made regarding a video that actually had been shown months previous to that.
Okay. And so then did you, so anyway, I guess you, after you thought you were being discriminated against, you said you hired an attorney. And did that attorney ever provide the board members and Michael Garvey with a litigation hold letter?
Yes, I've seen that letter, and one of the sections is categorized as litigation hold, I believe.
Okay. Did that letter also place the board and Garvey on notice that you were raising issues of discrimination?
I'm not an attorney, but yes, I that letter did state that. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to enter in another exhibit I have marked as 081, C081, and this is going to be entitled Litigation Hold Letter. I'm going to share it right now. And Jeff, is this the letter we were just talking about? Do you recognize this letter?
I do recognize that. Yes. Yep.
I'd like to move to have 081 entered into evidence.
No objection.
Now, Jeff, is this letter,
All right, well, hold on, I have to admit it into the record, so.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Exhibit C11, Bates C-081 is admitted.
so now it says here, there's some addressees for this letter here. It says the first is the date, August 21st, 2023. Is that when the letter was transmitted to the school board members and to the superintendent?
That was taken care of by my attorney at the time, but the date on there is when I'm assuming they received it. Yes.
Okay, and it says it was sent to Michael Garvey, Audrey Kostich, Gwen Keller, Amanda Falashi, Amy Helvick, Janelle Wise, and it has yeah, that's it. I read the title of the page, so yes. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Okay. And here in the first paragraph, does it state that I represent Jeff Peterson with regards to potential employment and discrimination litigation against Raymond School District? Is that correct?
That's what it says. Yes.
Okay, and then I'm going to scroll down a little bit longer, and I'm going to say, does it say litigation hold here on the top of page 3?
That's the part I remember. Yes. Categories for the litigation hold. Yes.
And is this instructing every board member? Is it every board member and Michael Garvey to place a litigation hold on all documents, notes, media, files, and communications?
Yes.
Does it specifically ask them to hold communications between and among everyone who's identified in this letter?
Yes.
So I understand that about a week, because you told me, well, let me strike that. Was there a board meeting held, a special board meeting held shortly after this letter went out?
Yes. I mean, there's regular special board meetings, several meetings held during that time frame. Yes.
Well, so I mean, I guess here I'm gonna enter in another exhibit here. This one is C011, and I'm going to the short title of this one is village board meeting letter.
Yes.
And Jeff, have you seen this letter before?
I have.
I would like to move.
Hold tight. I am sorry. I don't see any document up on my screen.
See anything either.
So I need to figure out what you're looking at, Wes, first.
No, that was my fault. That was my fault. Thank you for the reminder there. The
Okay.
share button sometimes escapes me. So anyway, Jeff, do you see this document now?
Hold on, give her a chance to review it. Just tell me when you're ready, Attorney Levinsky.
Okay. What did you say was on top of this letter, Wes?
On top of this letter? I didn't say anything was on top of this letter.
I thought you were talking about village board meeting, and
No,
I
I
got
said
confused.
I said the short title for the judge to enter it into the exhibit list is
Right.
village board meeting letter, because that's where this was distributed. So that's just my short title.
Okay.
I'm logging the exhibits in real time, and I need to put in a short description. And since council are more familiar with these documents than I think it's convenient for council just to give me a shorthand summary so I can just quickly type it in. Okay.
Okay. I would like to move this exhibit in as exhibit number C12, C12.
I don't believe, I object. You didn't lay any foundation for this yet.
Okay. Jeff, do you
You
recognize?
may be able to do so, but I
Yeah,
haven't
no,
heard any testimony yet on this.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We got in the weeds a little bit there. Jeff, do you
Let me
recognize?
before we continue too, I just want to make sure what get a little bit of a lot of things coalescing here that are slowing things down a bit. But see, I thought this C-011. I thought you gave a different number. Or was that
C011? Yes, Your
okay?
Honor.
I think you might have said a different number just moments ago, but okay. So and that's the C011 is the village board meeting letter that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay,
correct.
yeah. Go ahead. So.
Okay. Jeff, do you recognize this letter?
I do.
At the bottom of the letter in bold, do you see where it says, please attend a special school board meeting on August 29th, 2023?
Yes, I see that.
Okay. And this was about a week after you gave your litigation hold letter and put the school board on notice that you thought you were being discriminated against, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I would like to move to enter this.
You still have, I'm gonna object. You haven't
Okay.
laid the foundation for this document.
Jeff,
You've
how did you
asked
become,
him-
Jeff, how did you become aware of this letter?
People showed me the letter after attendance at a village board meeting, and I've read village board meeting minutes that indicate this letter was passed out.
Okay,
Who
so
is it from and who is it to?
I
Jeff,
don't think the witness knows. That's why I've been objecting.
Jeff, do you know who distributed this letter?
I know who distributed the letter, yes.
Who distributed this letter?
Art Binhack.
And who is the audience of this letter?
The audience is the taxpayers of Raymond School District as indicated at the top of the letter. Attention, taxpayers of Raymond School District number 14.
Okay. And is this letter encouraging people to come to the village school, excuse me, I want to make sure that we're clear because there's a village board meeting and there's a school board meeting, which are two separate things, right? So you said that Art Binhack was distributing this at the village board meeting, correct?
I'm gonna object. That's leading. And he doesn't have the foundation for that. He's telling you what he was told by other people and or.
I think he testified that what's the guy's name? Art
Binhack.
Binhack distributed it. And that's according to his personal knowledge.
I don't think so, Judge.
Well,
I don't think he has.
That's a credibility. If you want to cross-examine him and or get other witnesses to impeach the veracity, you can. But I think that's his understanding anyway. So I'm going to overrule the objection. Was this? So I see it's addressed to it. It says attention taxpayers of Raymond School District number 14. You pointed that out. Who was it? How was it sent and who was it sent to?
Judge, are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay. This was circulated via social media as well as a hard copy was passed out at the village board meeting.
Thanks.
Okay. And Jeff, how did you receive a copy of this letter?
I don't exactly remember, but I believe somebody showed me it, as well as the thousands of documents we've gone through. We've come across this letter. This letter is referenced in the village board meeting minutes that Art Binhack spoke to the public at that meeting and encouraged them to come to the special board meeting.
Is Art Binhack a school board member?
He is not. He was a school board candidate 2 times over.
And he lost both times?
He lost both times.
Okay. And what is this letter asking people to do?
Please attend the special board meeting on August 29th. Support your board members before they move into closed session to make a decision on the school's leadership that will have a lasting impact on the community for years to come. Before that paragraph, it indicates that they need to take their school back. And if they don't, who's to say what next? Will we move on to the government or continue stripping the core values of our community piece by piece?
Okay. And you're reading the last line of that paragraph, the last full paragraph, correct?
Correct. There's other information in that letter.
Okay. And you answered that Art Binhack is not a school board member, correct?
He is not.
Now, when you're going to have a special school board meeting, does that get posted to the public?
It does, yes.
Okay. And did you first find out about this special school board meeting through this letter or through the traditional posting?
Through this letter, it was being circulated on social media, and some teachers came to me with it and said, "Hey, what's the meeting about?" And I had no idea. Obviously, we were working in the school at the time, and I had no idea that there was going to be a special meeting on the 29th. They brought it to my attention midday. Statutorily, you can post an emergency meeting, but practice is to have as much notice as possible for the community.
Okay. And do you know what day Art Binhack was distributing this letter?
He was distributing it on the Monday of that week. So the 28th, I believe it was.
Okay, so the day
August 10th.
before, that's the day before the actual special school board meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. When did you finally see the official notice for this special school board meeting?
I cannot remember exactly, but I did stay around school that day, and it was probably 5:30, 6 o'clock. That was typically I was at school working that late anyway.
And when school board meetings, especially school board special meetings, get posted, where and how do they get posted?
They get posted on the district website, and there's 3 places in the community, physical places the school district at that time was posting them. One was in the front windows of the school, one was across the street at a business, and then one was down the street at Village Hall in this little message board thing they had.
And before you had seen any official posting, Art Binhack was distributing this, correct?
Correct. Yes, correct.
And then when a teacher came to you and told you about it, you checked to see if there was a official posting, correct?
I'm gonna
Correct.
object. This is leading. I would like this not to be leading because it's important.
Okay, but he already said it. I was just recapping what he said.
No,
Well, sustained. Can you,
Yes, absolutely, Your Honor. After you received this letter, did you check and see if a school board meeting had been officially posted?
I previously stated that a couple staff members had brought it to me either on their phones or on their email accounts, I'm not sure, and showed me and said, wait, did you know about this meeting? So it was during the day on Monday, the 28th. And yes, there was no posting in those locations that I said. So then I waited around school that day until the meeting was eventually posted, and it was well after the end of the school day. But it was circulating in social media during the day.
So if someone isn't a board member, how would someone who isn't a board member have received notice of a special board meeting before it was posted?
objection. Foundation calls for speculation.
well, I'll let him answer. Does he know or not? I overruled.
Art Binhack was a very had run for school board twice and was a very close associate of Gwen Keller's. They had campaigned as a team for school board multiple times. So somebody would know about a meeting that was coming up. I would assume that a school board member had told them.
And now you said you received a preliminary notice of non-renewal. Is that correct?
I did.
When did you receive your preliminary notice of non-renewal?
September 27th of 2023.
So that's just over a month of when your attorney sent the notification that you're being put the board on notice that you're being discriminated against. Is that correct?
Correct.
And what happened after you received the preliminary notice of non-renewal?
I went to work the next day, and I was Dr. Garvey. I was preparing for the day as usual. It was just about time for me to go out and welcome students as I did every day and kind of facilitate the drop-off line. And Mr. Garvey said that I needed to give him my keys and my computer and that I was being placed on administrative leave. And he walked me out of the building. When I got to the exit door, I noticed that parking lot was full of parents waiting to drop off their kids. As I told you, he didn't come to me till about 7:15 in the morning, and we opened our doors at 7:20. And the first thing that I saw was a driveway full of parents and students waiting to come into school for the day. And directly in front of me, placed on the playground, was one Racine County Sheriff's vehicle. There was another vehicle at the other side of the line as I was driving out that day that I saw.
Now, sometime after you received the preliminary notice of non-renewal, did you also receive a notice that open records requests were being made for your personnel file and documents related to you?
I did, yes.
I'm going to bring in another document here. This one is marked C089. And I have this titled Version of Peterson's Personnel File.
Can you repeat your exhibit number, which we'll use as a base number?
C089.
089. Okay, thanks.
Now, Jeff, this is a 84-page document, so I'm just going to scroll through it briefly here.
You need to
Starts
share
here.
it.
It starts. Thank you very much, Jeff. So this is an 84-page document. It starts with what looks like a criminal background check, and then it goes on through several things here. I'll just stop randomly. And you've seen this exhibit before, correct?
I have.
Okay. And is this the version of your personnel file that was released to the public?
It is.
Now, did you object to this being released?
I did. I worked with another person in the Cross Law Firm to start to see if there was any sort of injunction we could file to block the releasing of my file. I've since learned, obviously, that public officials have some different rules on things that can be released or not.
I guess my question really is, though, why did you object to it being released?
Oh, yep. There's multiple instances in this file where I feel as though personal information is being shared. First of all, a civil ordinance violation where I paid a ticket in 1990 was placed on the top of what was released and posted. My personnel file is still live on the district website today, by the way, which is years after it was requested. No longer, to me, does anybody have to request a public record. It's just there for the viewing. Also in this document is the first and last name of my partner. My sister's address is listed there. My financial institution information is listed there. My medical records are listed there, all unredacted.
I'm going to go to page 32 here of this exhibit here, where it says employee emergency information. Is this where it lists the address of your sister?
It does. It also lists my personal physician and my partner.
So it says here, Mike DeGell, partner. Is that it? Correct?
By name, yes.
Yeah. And you said, you tend to keep your sexual orientation to yourself, right?
I do. My relationships are a private part of my life.
Did you specifically ask the school board to redact these items?
That was part of the concern of having this released.
Now, you also made a comment earlier that your the background check was moved to the front of your personnel file. How do you know it was moved in your personnel file? How would you know that?
This document is separated from the rest of the document. So a background check has multiple pages. This background check isn't in a complete package. The last page of this document is found much later in the packet that was released, it would appear as though somebody took these pages and put them in front and forgot to bring the complete document.
I'm going to go to page. I'm going to go to page 33 of this document here. Is this what you claim is the last page of the background check?
Right. Yes.
Does it say end of rap sheet here that I highlighted for you?
Yes, that's what it says.
And above this is emergency contact information. That has nothing to do with your background check, correct?
Correct.
And how do you know that this is the last page of your background check?
We also, through my attorney, ran a duplicate background check, and they don't appear that way.
Okay. And now, why do you think someone would have moved this this part of your file to the front of the personnel of the personnel file before releasing it to the public?
Objection calls for speculation. He can't
Yeah,
testify to why
I-
somebody else did something.
Yeah, I can
I'll
ask that question differently.
sustain that. I think she's right there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I could change that. Mr. Peterson, this is part of your arrest record, or not arrest record, excuse me. You were never arrested, right?
Right.
Okay, but this is part of your criminal history check, and it has a charge here. Does that charge read lewd and lascivious behavior?
It does.
Is that a crime?
It's a municipal ordinance violation. I paid a fine, a ticket.
Okay. Is this the kind of thing you'd get for like peeing outside or something?
Potentially,
I'll
yes.
just object on foundation grounds. I don't know that he's got that foundation.
But it's just, I mean,
Sustain. Let me rule on it. I think that I'll sustain that.
so, but again, you said it's just a municipal code violation, not a misdemeanor, not a crime, correct?
Correct.
And when did you receive this municipal violation?
1990, when I was 19, I believe.
And you've been in the school system for, you said 30 years as an educator, correct?
Correct.
Had you
31.
ever lied about receiving this lewd and lascivious municipal violation before?
No.
Had you always, so it's always been something that was in your record or that the background check would have revealed?
Yes.
Okay.
Before we continue with questioning, I don't believe we've moved 12 or 13.
Yes, I would like to go ahead and move those in right now. Was 13 the,
Well, let's start with 12. 12 was the village board meeting letter.
yes, I'd like to move that into evidence, please, Your Honor.
I don't object to the admission.
Okay, the exhibit C12 is admitted, and then C13 is the, as you titled it, version of Peterson's personnel file. Do you want to admit, are you moving to admit C13 at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
Objections?
No objections.
Okay, so C13 is admitted.
Before we go on to another topic, I just need a 5-minute restroom break.
Yeah, and that's probably timely. We can do that because I also need that, and I'm old and I'm drinking coffee. So just so you all know, it's good to put that on the record. I'll be needing some breaks as well. Also, I need to save some more blank forms so I can keep entering exhibits because I've got one space left on my exhibit list form here. So, all right, so let's take roughly 5 minutes. I'll try to get everything. I mean, it might be a little longer than that for me to get everything arranged, but let's shoot for 5 to 10 minutes to reconvene. Okay, go off record now.
Roger that.
All right. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Judge.
Yes, Judge.
All right. And I did not touch the recording buttons. I just left it going. So there'll be a gap on the recording. I don't believe I have to do anything. I think it's been going the whole time. So let's go back on record and continue with the direct exam of Mr. Peterson by Attorney Haslam.
Hey, Jeff, I believe we left off, we were talking about your personnel file, correct?
Correct.
And was there anything else about this version of your personnel file that you thought was odd?
None of the updates that I had provided, none of the narratives regarding my plan of improvement were included. And there was also a HYA superintendent search marketing tool placed in there. Anybody who's familiar with the recruitment firms for educators, or specifically principals and superintendents, know that when you're hiring somebody, you put together a profile of your district, and it's potentially what people are looking for in the next administrator. It's something that's used to garner new superintendents, or candidates, I should say. And that's a very odd thing to be placed in a personnel file. Plus, that document that the district paid for was never shared as part of the search process.
And do you know who requested your personnel file?
I later found out that Art Binhack requested my personnel file, and then it's listed on the website that there's a couple media personnel requested it, and a couple other citizens. But
So I understand Raymond School, you said this earlier, they put the records they released onto their website, for all the public records they released, correct?
they put together a linkable site that is still live today for any open records request that they fulfill. They continue to leave those documents free and clear for anybody to seek out and review. Nobody has to request. Oh,
When you go to that website, does it say who requested the documents?
they do record that in most situations.
And when Art Binhack requested your documents, did they put that he had requested them on the website?
That wasn't made public until months and months later.
Okay. If I were to go to the website today, would I see that Art Binhack had requested your documents?
I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. March-ish, maybe they put that up.
Now, did you ever receive the notification that you were being investigated for misconduct?
For misconduct, yes, part of the paid administrative leave included that notice on September 28th. 27th was the preliminary notice of non-renewal, and then the 28th, when I was being put on administrative leave, Dr. Garvey indicated that it was due to an investigation.
Okay. And do you know when this investigation began?
I don't know exactly when it began. I know that there was weeks and months that nobody heard anything about it. I do know that the day of my non-renewal hearing, several teachers that morning received an email that they would be compelled to participate into an investigation regarding me, their principal.
Were some of these teachers you had planned to ask to speak on your behalf at the non-renewal hearing?
We did have several teachers that we planned to be witnesses at my non-renewal hearing. But after receiving that morning, a handful decided not to. They were fearful.
So going back to the investigation, what happened as a result of that investigation?
What happened as the result of the investigation that I was told about September 28th and continued forever?
Correct.
Okay. I was essentially, my pay and benefits were cut, and I was put on a unpaid leave at that point.
Do you know how many days of unpaid leave?
I'm pretty sure it was 76 days of unpaid leave.
Okay. And At the time you received that notification, how much time was left on your contract?
76 days exactly.
Did anyone ever interview you as part of this investigation?
I wasn't interviewed until February after I had already been non-renewed.
And when the investigation was completed, did you ask for a copy of the investigator's report?
I did.
I'm going to present a document here. This is C053. Jeff, can you see this document?
Yes.
Is this a response from the Raymond School to a open records request you made?
Yes.
I would like to move to have C053 entered in as evidence, please.
I just need a second to look at it.
Yeah, what was the shorthand description again, Attorney Haslam, for this?
This would be response to Peterson's open records request. I use ORR, it makes it a lot shorter.
I have no objection to this, the admission of C053, which I understand will be hearing exhibit 14.
Okay, so C14, Bates C053 is admitted.
Okay.
One slight pause here. I just want to, I've folded up an entire sheet. I just want to save this because every once in a while we get kicked out and it would really not be good if this had not been saved. Give me a moment. Happened to me. I lost a little bit of a document the other night. I was not happy with that, but anyway, not a huge thing, but okay, give me a second. I'll just put page 1 here. Give me one moment. I just want to make sure that. Okay. Okay, fresh sheet. So there should not be any similar delay for a little while yet. We got another sheet of exhibits to fill up. So go ahead.
Okay, Jeff. So this is a response to an open records request you made, correct?
Correct.
And do you see right here where it says regarding March 5th, 2024 public records request?
Yes.
And did you make a public records request on March 5th, 2024?
Yes.
And it states down here that
Hold on, Wes. I'm seeing March 6, 2024, and I'm wondering where you're saying, you kept saying March 5.
on the line, it says regarding March 5,
Okay.
2024 public records request. And then it goes down to the next paragraph and it says on or about March 6.
Thank you.
Raymond School
Appreciate that.
Districts, but I'm going to keep asking the question. I'm going to keep reading it for my client though. So it says the Raymond School District received your written request. And it asks, and basically it says you asked for the following records. The very first one here says a copy of any investigative report prepared by Jonathan Sachs and submitted to the district during the time frame January 1st, 2024 to March 5th, 2024. Did I read that correctly, Jeff?
You did.
Okay, and Jonathan Sachs was the person who is investigating you for misconduct, is that correct?
Yes.
Now I'm going to scroll down to the second page and I have the district's responses, and I'm going to read the first part I'm going to highlight here for you. It says, with regard to request number 1, after applying the balancing test, we concluded that the records were not subject to disclosure due to the public's interest in preserving the district's attorney-client privilege. Did I read that correctly, Jeff?
You did.
So is it fair to say that you did not receive a copy of the investigation when you asked for it?
Correct. Yes, I did not receive the copy of it when I asked for it.
When did you finally get a copy of the report of the investigation?
I'm not recalling at this time. I think potentially when it was released as open records or something. I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay. I'm going to introduce another exhibit here. I'm going to pull it up and share my screen. Jeff, can you see this?
Yes,
This is it's in C051, and I have the short title of this, the Sachs Report.
I see that.
And do you recognize this document, Jeff?
I do.
Is it a copy of the investigative report that Jonathan Sachs conducted concerning you?
Yes,
I would like to move C051 into evidence.
No objection.
Okay, give me one moment. C15, marked as Bates C051 is admitted.
Thank you. Now, Jeff, what is the dates on the Stadler Sachs report?
something just popped up. I think it says February 5th on there. February
want me to make it
6th, February 6th, 2024.
Okay, you see that now?
Yes, I think your cursor just
Oh,
did a pop up for a second.
my fault. Now, was there anything in this report that you found to be shocking?
Yes, several things.
Let's go to page 3 of this report. So on page 3, it says interview summaries, and is this the section where the investigator conducted interviews with various people, school board members, teachers, etc.?
Yes.
And it says Audrey Kostich on top. Who's Audrey Kostich?
Audrey Kostich is one of the board members. I believe she was board president at that time.
And down here, the very last sentence of this, I'm going to read it aloud. You tell me if I'm reading it correctly, okay?
Yes.
I quote, "She said that she feels that Mr. Peterson, quote marks, shouldn't be around children, end of quote marks, and there is, quote marks, something darker there, end of quote marks." Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly.
What do you think? Do you know what Audrey was talking about when she said that you shouldn't be around children?
Objection calls for speculation, the mindset of somebody else.
Well, he said, the question was, does he know what she was talking about? So do you know, Mr. Peterson, what she was talking about?
I don't. I suspect, but I
Well,
don't.
That's the answer to the question. Now I'll let the attorney follow up.
Did you feel that you were being portrayed as a pedophile, Jeff?
objection, relevance, how he feels is irrelevant.
No, he's bringing a discrimination claim, and people are conflating his sexuality with being a pedophile. So I think that's very valuable here.
Who's, I'm gonna move to strike that there's no evidence of that, Wes. I'd like a ruling on my objection.
Okay, well, I'm going to overrule the objection because it's part of a sequence. What is going on in his mind is part of a sequence of events. I think that is relevant. That doesn't mean that I think that everything that's in his mind is true, just so we're clear.
So Jeff, I'm going to re-ask the question just so you remember. Do you feel like you were being portrayed by Audrey Kostich as a pedophile?
Yes.
Now, does this report also mention that there were concerns about you having lunch with students?
It does. It mentions two annual events: principal for the day and lunch with the principal.
And why do you and I'm going to actually share that screen again. I didn't mean to click on share. I'm sorry. Now let's go down to page 9 of this PDF. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now this is an interview with a different person. I'm going to pause it and I'm going to read a line from this. And it says, she also referenced an event called Principal for a Day, where Mr. Peterson had lunch with an elementary school student in his office and had a table set up with tablecloth, candles, and wine glasses with water while they ate lunch and then posted it on Facebook. She thought this was weird. Did I read that correctly, Jeff?
Yes.
Now, did you have lunch in your office with a student?
I had lunch in my office with a student as part of a parent-teacher organization fundraiser. Lunch with the principal was offered as a item that families could bid on or was raffled off by our PTO organization.
So someone bid on being able to have lunch with you. They won that bid and their child was able to go eat with you. Is that what you said?
Correct. This instance they're referring to happened to be a student that wanted a repeat from when he was principal of the day. So his mom wouldn't let him bid on that again. So she let him bid on lunch with the principal the next year round.
Okay. So the parents knew that the child was having lunch with you, correct?
As a matter of fact, the mom would frequently remind me that don't forget, you have to have lunch with Zach. Don't forget, Zach's looking forward to lunch. Yes, it was an event that they purchased.
Now it kind of portrays you as having a candlelit dinner. Uh, Were you in a dark room with the lights off and just candles?
We were in my elementary school office that has 2 doors and a set of windows, and lights can't be dimmed. Um, we happened to have a musical that year, which was the Addams Family, so I had some candlesticks left over from props, and a family paid a lot of money to have lunch, their son to have lunch with the principal. So I tried to make school lunch as enjoyable as I could.
Y- You said you had two doors to your office. Did you shut those doors when you had lunch with the student?
No, both doors were open, and actually describing my office, there were three windows that opened onto the hallway and a bank of windows that opened into other offices on the back.
Yeah. Were the lights turned off in your office?
No.
When this lunch was going on, did you take photographs of it to share on social media?
Of course, we shared cool things that happened at school all the time, and um, it's a way to get people to say, "That's what it is when we bid on that. I want my kid to do that next year."
And in your 30-year career as an educator, had you seen this kind of thing before?
Uh, there's things called lunch bunches, lunch with the principal. Can I eat with you, teacher Mr. Peterson? Can I eat with you, principal? Kids ask to eat with their teachers and principal all the time.
And you've seen other teachers and principals do this, not just you?
As a matter of fact, I've had multiple colleagues um, take ideas from me and replicate them also.
Okay. Now, does someone in this report also complain that you took saw you take kids in your car to go get lunch?
Yes, that was part of the principal for the day activity, which again was an auction item that people bid on. I've had my very first principal for the day, I think is 35 now. I've had principal for the day ever since I've been a principal, and it is always a fundraising activity.
Okay. And when you took these, well,
Oh,
how many students did you take out to lunch on that one day?
again, it's an event that you're trying to make a student feel special and have a great day because they get to feel important. I let the student pick 2 friends. They get to go on the intercom and call them to the office. The student brings 2 friends to the office, and we get to go out for lunch together at their choice. I contact the friends and obviously the principal for the day, their parents the night before, telling them what the plan is. They're not going to be eating school lunch today because, you know, Zach happened to ask them to come with him for principal for the day, and we go to a nearby restaurant.
Did any parents ever raise any concerns with you? The
I've
parents of the children that you had lunch with or took to go get lunch?
I've called parents every single time I've included this activity as part of principal for the day, and I've never had one parent express any concern. Sometimes they even offer to pay for their kid.
When you read this report, did it make you feel like people had unreasonable fears over normal things you were doing?
These are 2 examples of events that I think people made perverse and twisted.
Do you think some of the board members shared this kind of homophobia?
Objection calls for speculation. He cannot testify to what board members thought in their heads.
Well, I would like to ask
Pure speculation.
if he feared board members were homophobic towards him.
I don't have an objection. That's a different question. So I don't have an
Okay.
objection to him stating what his fears were.
So
Yep.
you're withdrawing the first question and we can proceed with a second.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Your Honor.
Can we hear it again, Wes? Sorry.
Sure. Did you have fears that board members suffered from homophobia, for lack of a better way of saying it?
Yes.
I'm going to pull up another exhibit here. This is going to be C012, and the short title on this is Keller Human Growth and Development email. And if we're good, I'm going to go ahead with Jeff. Jeff, looking at the bottom part of this email right here, I'm going to highlight it so that you can see which part I'm talking about. Do you see that?
I see it. Yes.
What is have you seen this email before?
I have. Yes.
What's the subject line?
Sex ed concern.
And who is it from?
The email is from board member Gwen Keller.
And who is it to?
It's to Mike Garvey and Jeremy Childers.
And what's the date of this email?
Mike Garvey's email has a strange date pattern. This is March 24th of 2023.
Okay. And Lori, can we stipulate that this date format is day, month, then year? Great.
Absolutely. And to the extent you need it, if we see that in subsequent emails, in this case, I'll stipulate that that's the format.
Okay. So that throw us off during depositions one's pretty good. So, okay. So this email, I'm gonna just go ahead and read it to you, Jeff. I want you to follow along and make sure I'm reading this correctly. Okay. It says, Dr. Garvey, I've heard from two parents who are concerned about Mr. Peterson teaching the boys' human growth and development class. Intuitively, I thought that would be a concern as well, if you recall, when we discussed it at a previous board meeting. The next paragraph begins, can you please confirm if another adult was observing the class, and if so, who? Did I read that portion correctly, Jeff?
That is, yes, that's correct. You read it correctly.
I'd like to have exhibit C012 moved into evidence.
No objection.
Okay, so C16, Bates C012 is admitted into the record.
Now, Jeff, earlier in the testimony, I had asked you, at the time that you first hired a lawyer back in August, and they sent that letter out, what your fears of, what reasons you had for that you thought you were being discriminated against. But this occurred, you didn't see this until much later, correct?
Correct.
When did you finally see this email?
Probably when open records were released. I'm aware of the situation before that.
And what do you think she means when she says intuitively she thought it would be a concern as well?
I'm going to object. That calls for speculation.
Yeah, what is the, well, any response, Attorney Haslam? I mean, ultimately, we're going to be looking at the motives for the whoever had decision-making authority for the school district and taking adverse actions, right? And so I've allowed, to the extent it provides a thread that indicates, supports why he did what he did, that's fine. But this is a little fringy. I appreciate Attorney Lubinsky's concern here. Any response or objection?
No, I actually, I'll just withdraw that question. I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
So Jeff, did you teach human growth and development class?
I have to explain. Class is a 1-day, 45-minute session once a year for fifth graders. So class, to me, I think some people have it's a class period. So I taught that one class.
Okay. And did you teach it both years that you were at Raymond School?
I did.
Okay. And in that class, do they separate the boys and the girls?
We do. I taught the class in other districts as well.
Okay. It's a common practice to separate the boys and the girls?
It does, and to have fill-ins because there aren't a lot of males in elementary school.
Okay. And so in this class, what grade levels is this class for?
Fifth grade only.
Fifth grade only. And the fifth grade teacher, is that, do you have any male fifth grade teachers at the time you were teaching this class?
No, only female.
Okay. And the first year you taught it, did you teach it with anybody else in the room with you, or is it just you, with any other adult in the room with you, or was it just you?
Just me.
Okay. And then the second year you taught it, was there another adult in the room with you?
Yes, based on this email, I was told that I had to have somebody else in the room with me.
Well, Jeff, let's clean that up. You said based on the email.
I'm sorry, based on the situation, Dr. Garvey had come to me and said that there's a concern that I was teaching human growth and development.
Okay. And had anybody ever
Let me pause you. So were you teaching male students or female students? I'm not sure I caught that.
Male, we divided the boys and girls for this 45-minute lesson.
And has that always been the practice?
To my knowledge, obviously directly before me was COVID and things. It's the practice in other districts. The boys aren't comfortable asking, boy questions as they're entering puberty. The girls is much more involved with menstruation and things, and fifth grade boys, I will speculate to say, aren't
Well,
the
you don't have
best.
to speculate. You don't have to speculate. I think you answered my question. That's good.
All right.
All right. Did we enter this in as an exhibit yet?
No.
Okay, I'd like to move to have C012 entered in exhibit.
No objection.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we did. We did.
Oh, yes. Yep. I
we
got
did.
it, my
We
list.
did. My bad. I looked at the wrong blank here. That's been a minute already. So it's admitted again. Just
Okay.
to be thorough.
I'm going to open up another exhibit here. This is a C013, and the short title of it is Keller, and well, I have it as Keller pedophile email, but we could make that something more innocuous
I
if
don't
you
want to
like.
write that.
Okay, so let's do a Keller SEL curriculum email.
SEL?
SEL, correct. All right, Jeff, do you see this this document I have?
I do.
And starting right here is an email header, and who's this? Actually, scratch that, strike that. That was a reply to this email. Is this portion of the email? This is the portion of the email we're going to be talking about. Just to be clear, the part I highlighted. Do you see that, Jeff?
I do. Yes.
And it was sent on Friday, June 2nd, 2023 by Gwen Keller, correct?
Right.
And she's writing it to Dr. Garvey, is that correct?
She is.
Okay, and I'm going to go down to the third paragraph and read a portion of it for you, and you can make sure I'm reading this correctly. It says, and I'm quoting now, aside from reviewing other SEL curriculum, can we set a policy that restricts any teacher, whether ELA or social studies, etc., to avoid teaching topics related to a person's sexuality? The next topic coming down is considering pedophiles as a sexual orientation. Heaven forbid this topic be broached in front of our children. Did I read that correctly, Jeff?
Correct.
Jeff, do you feel that email is an example of why you think board member?
Objection leading.
Let him finish his question.
Well, just for the record, he's about to lead his witness. Then he's going to fix his question. So these questions should not be starting off leading. And
Do you want to
I
withdraw and try
apologize.
again?
Yes, I'll
Right.
withdraw and try again. Jeff, did the last two emails I showed you? You know what? Strike that. Strike that. Jeff, when you read that email, what did you think about it?
I
For the
didn't see
record,
it.
I object on relevance grounds.
Well, should I respond, Your Honor?
Yeah, you can respond to her objection.
Yeah, I think it's very relevant because we have here what I see could be portrayed as one of the board members making a decision about Jeff Peterson's employment, who's conflating pedophilia with
But
homosexuality.
ultimately, to Attorney Lubinsky's point, I see where you're coming from, and I would be very curious to know how those who made the remark or reacted to it from the district viewed it, what their understanding was. I've allowed a little bit of this because I thought maybe you were just creating a thread as to what his actions were at the time, but really his thought, his interpretation really at the end of the day is not going to impact my decision. Again, to reiterate, it's the adverse actions, as I understand it, of a unpaid leave, termination, right? And why was that? Was it for legitimate, non-discriminatory reasons, or job performance is what I suspect is going to be the testimony, or discriminatory reasons. And we've got the various protected classes: sex, sexual orientation, and retaliation. And just to remind everybody, we don't have a lot of. It's a fairly fluid and loose process we have. We're not bound by the rules of evidence under 227-45, other than relevance, materiality, and privilege. Relevance being evidence that tends to make the existence of any fact that's of determination that's of evidence that tends to make any fact of consequence of the determination of the action more or less probable than would be the case in the absence of the evidence. So just to keep that in mind as the questioning proceeds.
Roger that, Your Honor. Mr. Peterson, did Gwen Keller play a role in the decision to not renew your contract?
She did.
How?
She was a board member that voted for preliminary notice of non-renewal. She was also a board member that voted for the final non-renewal.
Was Gwen Keller involved in the school, the day-to-day aspects of the school more than other school board members?
She was
Objection foundation. It's also vague. I don't know what you day-to-day. I'll object on vague and foundation.
Okay, let me take out the day-to-day part. Jeff, was Gwen Keller more involved in the school than other board members?
yes.
All right, so you testified before that you were given a preliminary notice of non-renewal on September 27th, 2023, right?
Right.
And this was about a month after you put the school on notice that you were being discriminated against, right?
Right.
And you asked for a public hearing, correct? To argue that your contract should be renewed, right?
Correct. Yes.
And when did that hearing take place?
December 6th, 2023.
And during that hearing was when the board members would make a decision on whether or not to renew your contract for the subsequent year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And during this hearing, did you tell the board or your attorneys tell the board that you thought you were being discriminated against?
Yes.
Did you present those emails from Gwen Keller that I just showed you?
Those emails were presented during my non-renewal hearing. Yes.
Did you ask teachers to appear on your behalf?
I did ask for teacher witnesses.
Did some teachers appear on your behalf?
They did. Yes.
Did you dispute what Garvey said about you in your administrative review while you were at this non-renewal hearing?
I did.
Did you explain to the board that Garvey didn't use the approved model for principal evaluation while you were at the non-renewal hearing?
I did indicate that he did not follow board policy.
And did you explain to the board that you were given your first PIP update just 1 month after receiving the initial PIP?
Yes,
And did you explain to the board that during that time you and Garvey were in the same building for about 10 days?
correct. Yes,
And did you explain to the board that the next PIP update came after you'd only worked for about 5 additional days with Garvey in the same building with you?
yes,
And did you explain to the board that Garvey never again met with you or provided you with updates or feedback about your PIP after that?
correct. Yes,
And throughout that time, did you, of your PIP, did you provide frequent documentation of progress towards meeting the goals set out in the PIP?
I communicated frequently with people regarding my activity as the building leader, and yes, updates to my plan of improvement were included as well.
Do you think there was anything you could have done that would have met the goals that Garvey laid out for you?
No,
Do you think that the review and the PIP were just pretext to fire you because you're a gay man?
Objection, that's leading.
I think we pretty much thought a good foundation for
I
that.
mean,
You're leading him.
sustained. I think that's also argumentative. I mean, it's obviously what you are contending, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah,
I don't
okay,
think
fair
I
enough.
need a question in the record to, the allegations will speak, and your briefs will flesh out your arguments.
Okay.
While you're pausing, did we not move C-17?
I don't think we did. For the record, I do not object to that.
Okay, do you want to move that, Attorney Haslam?
Yeah, that's the one I have is C013 as the
Correct.
SEL curriculum.
It
Yes,
said
please, Your Honor.
C-17, Bates C013 is admitted into the record.
Okay. I have another document I'd like to bring in here.
Okay,
And this is a document I have labeled as C010. Jeff, do you recognize this document? Oh, the short title is Anonymous Letter.
okay.
Jeff, have you ever seen this before?
yes,
Does this letter discuss you?
it does.
Does this letter discuss, does this letter urge people to support removing you as principal?
Yes, it does, and it encourages them to seek out my personnel file.
Was this letter distributed largely among the community?
Objection, foundation.
Do you know if this letter was distributed largely among the community?
Okay, and I'll allow it the way you rephrased it.
It was put on social media.
Does this letter mention a board member named Amy Helvik by name?
It does.
Does this letter accuse you of sexualizing and grooming children?
Yes,
Do you know if this letter was ever distributed along with a copy of your personnel file?
it says
I-
attached. It says
I-
attached.
The question was whether he knows, so at least let him answer.
I do know. The letter states attached is a body of evidence from Jeff Peterson's personnel file.
I'd like to have a C010 entered in as evidence, Your Honor.
I don't have an objection.
Okay, so C-18, Bates C010 is admitted. That.
When was the first time that you saw that letter, Jeff? Do you remember?
This letter was published in social media. It was on the web and also shared with reporters.
I don't
Widely.
think that, I'm going to move to strike the answer. The question was when, not how.
So repeat the question again.
When do you recall when you first saw this letter?
Okay, so the former question is struck. You can try again with this question.
I don't recall exactly, but it was when I was still employed at Raymond School. So fall of 23
Okay.
is a best guesstimate. It was before the non-renewal hearing. I know that.
So, okay, we can move on now. What happened after the board voted to not renew your contract?
Could you be a little more specific?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about how you had a hearing, a non-renewal hearing on December 6th, correct?
Yes.
And I believe we established, if not, I'll just ask the question now. Did the board vote to not renew your contract?
They did. They voted 4-1 to not renew my contract.
Who was the one board member who voted in your favor?
Amy Helvik, mentioned in the letter you just showed.
Okay. So after the December 6th hearing, I want you to tell me what happened next.
Do we know the date of that? Just for chronology of the vote?
The date was
December.
actually, the hearing was December 6th. The actual date of the decision was the 7th because it went on until 1:30 in the morning, I believe. Lori, is that about right? So we could say
So
December
I would-
6th.
Yeah.
I would agree the vote actually came after midnight, so technically the 7th,
Okay,
but the hearing was the 6th.
got it.
So Jeff, I want you to walk me through. After December 6th, December 7th, when the board voted to not renew you, just tell me what happened next. Just in your own words.
For the remainder of the year, or I'm not quite sure I'm knowing specifically enough what you're asking. I apologize.
That's fine. Did you take FMLA leave, Family Medical Leave Act leave under the FMLA?
I did, and I guess I understand now that I understand what you're asking.
Yeah, that's all you need. If he asks, if you listen to the scope of his question, if he says, "Did you take FMLA leave?" If you say yes, is the answer, presumably, if you know that.
And sorry, Your Honor, I didn't mean to cut you off, did I?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Just reminding. There's always a impulse to be helpful as a witness, and I'm just reminding this, as I do many witnesses, that if you listen carefully to the scope of the question, that makes things easier because your attorney can follow up with additional questions. So go ahead.
So tell me, why did you take FMLA when you're already on administrative leave?
You can understand the amount of stress and anxiety and depression surrounding an individual who has been called
Take a moment. You can take a moment at any time, Mr. Peterson, if you need it. Just
I'm okay.
if you need there's a short break at any point, just let me know.
You can understand. Thank you. You can understand that when you've spent your adult life and career working with children in an elementary school and end up working in the community and school that drove you to satisfy the desire of becoming an educator, and you've been called a pedophile, that you sexualize children, that you groom them because you're a gay male, you can understand what that does, not only in the moment, but also when you start to see effects relating to that regarding your future employment and your current job and, quite honestly, your dream. So I had been involved in psychological therapy, and the investigation into misconduct was still floating around out there. I ended up being interviewed by Jonathan Sachs in February. And based on the interview, I thought, wow, there's not, I might have to go back to work. And I know there's some people on the screen that can relate that when you have to walk in front of a room of 400.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Peterson. It looks like I'm going to have to take, there's a call I'm going to have to take real quick. Okay. Just
Okay.
a moment. Oops. Well, I'm just gonna, everybody stay put. Okay. I'll be right back.